All right, so we're back.
Yep.
You got
it.
Yep.
Go ahead.
You go.
All right.
You go. I go.
Yep.
I don't know.
You just saw us play Stonebound Saga, a 1 versus 1. Each of us had 3 characters on our team, and it was pretty close towards the end. So.
It was super close during the end. I have no idea how much of the discussion Jeb's leaving in on the end of the game stuff, but yeah, we discussed some of the mistakes we made way back in the game that hugely affected the end of the game. But Stonebound Saga, this is the Kickstarter version. I kickstarted it, and you just saw the playthrough again, so let's jump right into Jeb. What does he think about Stonebound Saga?
I liked it. When I went into it, I was like, well, is it really necessary to have like the cards and the whole board? And I was like, well, you could do figures and stuff, but I feel like that, with the amount of characters in here, doing figures would make it ridiculously expensive. So I was like, well, it's good on them for using the cards to deal with that, so you cut that out of it. But
I'm going to interject on Jeb's figure thing here real quick, and then we're going to go back to Jeb. That was actually brought up a couple times during the, at least, I don't know if it was in the second round, but the first round where I did back that they canceled, people mentioned figures, and I was like, personally, I was like, absolutely not. Because, first of all, me being the art freak on the cards, I was like, that's half the game. You do figures, and it kind of like takes it away. In my opinion, I just was like, and then second for what Jeb said, there's such an enormous amount anyways. I just think that the design of the game, honestly, in my opinion, would be like hindered just a little bit if you decided to do all figures. Could you, I guess, grab some? Yeah, sure you could. And
the only thing the reason why I would want the figures is because the board is so large. If you had figures, you could actually reduce the size of it. But
true, because you could make the squares a lot smaller. But then with the stuff coming out like terrain,
exactly,
then you're back up to at least having them large enough to be able to somehow have something that fits on the board like that. Anyways, I didn't like. Some people mentioned it. I was never on board with it because I was like, the way that I felt like the designers wanted it was to be able to show off all the artwork and everything like that. But anyways, okay, so anyways.
I guess the rest of what I was going to say was I think it's easy to learn, difficult to master. It's definitely one of those because the turns are so simple. It's like you draw, you activate your characters, you break fuses, and then discard. That's your turn. The mechanics are not difficult.
Yep.
The second you start looking at all the characters
and all the things
all their
you can
abilities
do, and how big the battlefield is and everything,
you're just sitting there like so many combinations.
Yep.
And definitely we've only played one full through, and I feel like if we
partial and one full,
we'd have to play like a couple more just to be able to like get down to being able to be like bam, 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 bam.
And you're just talking about those 6 characters, and that's not even like, oh, bust out a new character. That's just with those, because we started to see, oh, wait a second, if I do this and I do this, and then it's like, well, if he has this on, then I should do this, but if he doesn't have this fuse ability on, then I can do this. So there's all that kind of thing going on in the game. And I totally 100% agree with Jeb and with the simple to learn, hard to master thing, because actually the very first set of rules I read of this, I didn't understand what they were talking about. Now, it was pretty much a PDF with just words.
Right.
There wasn't very many pictures. And 2, the way they were originally, this is like the very original, like, second Kickstarter or whatever, first, I don't know, one of the ones that got canceled, that PDF out there. I'm reading it and I'm like, man, I don't really understand this, especially the fuse thing. I don't know what they're talking about, but I stuck with it because like the guys that were designing it sounded like they were really gonna follow through, and again, like, I'm an art whore, so it's like, so I wanted to follow it through. But he is 100% right. It's like, those turns, like, it's so simple.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't even hard to remember who you activated. You didn't need anything like that. Like, some of the games, it's like, did I activate them or not, or blah, blah, blah.
Like,
but
when we first played, we only did like 2 or 3 rounds, and I could tell from that play versus what we just did on camera, like I had a better understanding of everybody's abilities.
Right.
The first time around, I was like, I'm never going to remember all these things. And then the second time, I was like, okay, I remember that this person does this, and I've got these things. I feel like the more you play with people, then the more you'll...
And I feel like that, like, you kind of honed in on certain things.
Right.
And so you didn't really...
Yeah, you don't even use
everything. You didn't need
everything.
to know, but you needed to be like... You kind of like I had 2 abilities that could reach 4 away. So I always knew it was kind of like, well, if I have those, then I can at least reach him, because he was, when Jeb started to retreat. Things like that. It was kind of like, I don't need to have all 9 or all 6 or whatever memorized. In our case, only 9, because neither of us played with a 3-star character. Or 12 if you had a 3-star character. But it was, it really did, like Jeb said, start to come to you. Like, you didn't have, you just like, oh, wait a second, I think I remember kind of what's there. And I also remember reading an attack that I'm never going to probably use this game. Or an ability, or whatever, because it doesn't apply.
Right.
For instance, I had that aura that doesn't allow the freeze, but I only kept it on for a little bit, and then I was like,
He hasn't been freezing me.
He hasn't been freezing me.
I don't think I did any freezes until like
the very
last
end.
few
Well,
turns.
part of that was because he wasn't getting the water.
Yeah, that was
And I was like, well, if he's not getting it, I'm going to take a chance. If it starts becoming irritating, so and then so I busted that fuse. And that was a huge. It was only a 1-card thing, but 1 card can make a huge difference in this game. If you watch the gameplay, you can tell that there is a little bit of that. So there is some resource management in it. I mean, do you hold back, hold your cards, wait till you got a whole handful of massive attack? You chip away. What do? There's like a lot of stuff you can do.
There was that one point where you stole cards from me, and I was like, I didn't realize you had a card stealing thing. So now that was in the back of my mind. And there was one turn where I had a 3-star rainbow, a 3-star like wind or something that you could use, and then I had 2 1-star darkness, which I knew you couldn't use. And I was like, do I hold the 2-star, and if he hits me with it, there's 50-50 chance, or do I toss him so I have a better chance of getting something I want? And I went with the chance of getting something better, and luckily he didn't hit me with it again. So.
Yeah, so, well, that was actually when I think I was in the light drought, when I wasn't getting anything.
Oh, I
so
like
I was
that light drought.
Yeah, that light drought. I could have taken... And then towards the end of the game, when we were both chucking cards, I couldn't hit one to save my life, and it probably didn't matter because he didn't have anything to steal anyhow. So, anyways, I guess you can probably tell from the way I'm talking that I'm pleased. It is actually very much, I think, like I had envisioned in my head. I'm glad it was... I thought it might have been a little more complicated, like mechanics-wise, but it wasn't. So that made me happy. Obviously, you guys know that I'm super pleased with the artwork. It's pretty freaking incredible. So I'm totally looking forward to see what else they do with this. If you watch the intro, like I said, right this second, there's a Kickstarter going on for the expansion to this, which adds terrain. They gave a little bit of sample in this box of the terrain. Jeb and I just minutes ago read through some of them.
Yeah,
and
our first
we were like, oh wow, this is going to mess things up.
Yeah.
And they did a good job with that. They actually have the terrain card is the same size as a regular one, so it just plops on the board. And then there's a reference card that you sit by the board, so anybody can grab it at any time to remember what that terrain does, so you don't even have to go back into the rule book to look it up. You just, okay, this terrain's on the board, put this reference card on the side, and you're ready to go. So that was pretty smart. And again, not in this box. I mean, the sample's in this box, but terrain doesn't come into big play until after this Kickstarter, assuming they're funded. As of the last time I looked, I think they were 75% there, so they should get there. Also, since it is the expansion, just like any other Kickstarter, there is an option to get this and the expansions as a combo
So
while
if you
they're
liked
running
what
it.
you saw,
Yeah, if
then-
you liked what you saw, if you like a strategic battle game with a butt ton of abilities and things to do, but like Jeb said, it really wasn't that bad to. I thought it was going to be harder to remember and pay attention to, but there was a little bit like, you know, okay, I'm going to activate this character. I would pull their card over and just like glance and make sure there wasn't anything you're missing, but you're also only glancing usually at the stuff you know you have.
Right.
You're close to using.
Yeah, what you have in your hand determines.
Like if I have no green,
not looking there.
I'm not looking on that side at all. If I have one red or two red, I'm looking at the 2 powers, and then if there's a 3 power, I might be glancing at the 3 power to be like, should I hold or should I just attack now? So those are the decisions aren't as bad as I thought they might be when we first started to play, but it all kind of synced pretty well.
Yeah.
I don't think we can address too much on balance of the game with only one game, and
there's no way. Our opinion on that would be just throw it out the window.
The ridiculous amount of characters you could do.
Which is a really cool thing about the game is since there's so many different things, I think you'd probably get tired of the mechanics before you got tired of the game itself. Because you switch out characters, it's going to be different.
Yeah, so. Totally. And I think that's one of the reasons why they recommend the draft play too. Because if, let's say that, you know, I mean, there's a lot of people, unlike us, that like they get a game and they actually play it a bazillion times, and we get a game and we're like, that's awesome, and we play it once and then we move on, and then we look at the game on our shelf and we go, oh, we should play that again. Anyways, my point to that story being, if you're one of the people or groups that, you know, really get involved in something, I would say even if you guys start to learn all the characters really, really well, and if there are broken combos, draft system kind of breaks that unless there's a fluke, because
there's
if you and I are
like me,
even if there is, but it's like if there's a character out there that I know, like you took one character and there's your huge busted combination is sitting out there, most likely I'm taking it just to stop you from getting a busted combination, unless I see just as busted a combination for myself. So draft is definitely going to help if you guys are, you know, watching it and wondering about some of those things. Jeb and I also talked about at the end of the game, like how is there a possibility for it to end up in a stalemate? Meaning, can I just stay out of range? Can he just stay out of range? Can we run around the board and just do nothing to each other? In this case, it didn't seem like it was going to happen. We tried to run through some scenarios, and again, not knowing all 70 characters and their abilities, we don't know that for sure. And again, if you even watched the last 2 minutes of the game, I just conceded because I was like, I can run around this board, but eventually he's going to trap me within the range. All he had to do was hold the cards that he needed that boosted him. There was nothing left for me to do, which triggers you to start thinking about all the back things in the game that we already talked about. Like, a major move for me was I had the ability to move his character after I attacked him, and I didn't, and it super hurt because he was able to keep his 2 characters that fed off each other together, and that was just a huge mistake. So that's just one example. I know he had a bunch that he said that he went like, why did I do that?
Because I was getting move, I think the term was move range on his card, and I just heard range, so I was like, oh, range is the same, but it's not. It's actually, when they say move range, they're talking about the movement stat, not the range stat, which in my head, it screwed me over.
That was one of the ones, and then also he's talking about the same character, the Dalton character. The other thing that was stuck in Jeb's head was my counterattack applied to him too, and my counterattack was only if
I did damage to allies.
Like he was like my guy was a protector guy and was like going to run over and slap you if you touched any of my friends. that was kind of the ability, and Jeb was like, if I attack him, he's going to counterattack me. He's going to counterattack me. I have to stay out of range of it. Once the movement clicked, then he couldn't get the counterattack out of his head. So I guess I had a little bit of advantage there, which didn't pay off in the end because I still ended up losing. But I didn't lose viciously. That happens sometimes. Right. So as you can see, I'm not grumpy at him right now because it was a pretty awesome, really close game that it looked like Jeb was going to come out, and then I caught up a little bit, and then his guys had more damage, and then my guys had more damage, and then all of a sudden it's a one-on-one, and
I was not expecting that.
and and it was cool. I almost hope every game goes like that, because those are the games that are fun when you don't know. Yeah. If it would have just came out and it was like, oh, my guys are all incapacitated now, then that's lame. So, anyways, good job to Sky Kingdom, because it was I really enjoyed it. So glad I kickstarted it. I am in your other one, so that's about all I have to say for the review part. Now we will go over Jeb's famous things to remember. Unless you wanted to say something else about the game.
The only other thing I was going to say was it kind of reminds me of like a miniatures game without the miniatures. So if you...
Yeah, with the activations and stuff. Yeah, so it really does.
If people don't want to invest in miniatures, which usually you have to buy like a core set, like a core team, another core team to do battle, and then there's like a bunch of add-on, like other things you can add on to those teams.
And you're usually talking about a thick rule book with little nuances.
And then you got to assemble and paint and all that stuff. If you want to avoid all that stuff, you can pick this up, and you're pretty much having the same mechanics of I've got a team, you've got a team, and then there's different activations.
I didn't even think about that. You're 100% right. That is totally running through my head right now. And with the stuff that they're coming out with, now you have terrain.
Right. So
which is going to be the same thing.
The only difference is you're limited by the grid instead of like a 3x3 area that miniatures do.
And they literally could throw in some more statuses if they want.
Yeah.
You put an add-on reference card and a pack of tokens, and now you've got some... Like, if they brought out some different heroes with some new stuff or whatever.
And you don't have to worry about measuring. You just count
spaces. I didn't even think about that. It literally is a miniature game in a box with cards.
Yeah, and with the variety that you get, you've got tons of different characters.
Tons.
Yeah. Not that I can say that.
Have no idea how I feel that it would play with multiple people. I don't even remember how they said the setup was to you.
I know the two humans versus two humans. Each person gets two characters.
So you play a 4-on-4 battle.
And then when it gets higher, I think 3 versus 3. Everybody controls one, maybe something like that. I don't know.
Okay. Not sure how I feel like that. I mean, at least it gets everybody around the table.
If you've got a group that the size varies, then
and then at least you have probably, like, if we were on a team, you might see a strategy that I don't, or blah, blah, blah. And I don't remember, like I said, I didn't read it. I'm assuming you play with, each character has their own hand. It's not like you can share a hand. I don't know. Who knows?
All I know is they've done a great job for any combination of people except one player. This is not a solo game.
I don't even think you could make it a solo game.
Yeah,
I mean, they'd have to come out with
a thing that's here's a campaign that you can do by yourself.
So, okay, so now your things that don't remember. Things that don't remember. Things to remember.
Definitely the key is to count your fuse cards with your hand when you're drawing. We didn't have a problem with that because when we read it, we were like, that's super important, and that was like in our mind. But if that doesn't click with you like it did with us, then definitely remember that.
Yep.
Running through the turns only have 4 phases.
Yep.
The hardest thing to remember is who you've already activated. I
didn't even think that was too bad, though.
Yeah,
I feel like that was pretty.
I mean, maybe if you're a beginner.
I think you have more of a chance of thinking you already did something with one of those no action attacks than anything else, honestly. Yeah. So just remember, if you see the word no action, it's basically a freebie on your turn. Most of them said you can only do it once, so you can't stack it, but the next turn you can do it again.
Yeah, I think another hard thing to remember is your opponent's abilities, because when you're first learning the game, or this is like 3 characters that you've never played with before, you're focused on their abilities and trying to get it synced up. And then when your opponent has the exact same amount of abilities, and you don't have access to the cards to read them, it's kind of like, well, try to remember what you can, or ask them to look.
Right. I think one of the things you might want to do at the beginning of the game is just pass your character cards over to your player. Let him at least scan it. I would say don't spend a half an hour trying to memorize it. Just scan it, and like stuff that you think is going to be really detrimental to you is going to stick out in your head. And then while you were playing, which you saw me do quite a few times with Jeb, he probably did the same thing. We asked each other, which character is the one that does this?
Right.
Because you had in the back of your mind, like,
Somebody resurrects.
Who resurrects? And I constantly, I couldn't remember. I don't know why I couldn't remember, but I kept asking Jeb, who's got that one that adds range? And he was like, he kind of had 2 things. Because Callista had a power or an ability
that my allies increase range,
and then
her attack.
And then she had an attack that did it. So I kept getting confused because Alma was always right by her.
Yeah.
But Alma was doing stuff too, but he just had her so that Alma's range could be a little more. And because Yuki was... Well, that was smart of Jeb to keep those 2 together, and Yuki, because he has a movement of 4. It's, like, ridiculous. They would be stupid to keep somebody that's fast.
Yeah, with
in the
back
it's
or
like,
whatever.
Run in, punch in the face, hope you don't get hit back, and then if you get really pummeled, run back the next turn if you need to retreat for a minute.
Yeah.
Especially since you had a healer. He was the one that he could heal himself. But at least you could have strategized well. Maybe I should.
I was trying to do my best with it, but
exactly.
Yuki died quick.
Anyways, I'm kind of having a block right now on other things to remember. I feel like there was some other stuff. I will say that some of the stuff in the game can get a little math intensive. Like with the what are they called? Sheath or something like that on the. I forget what it was called. Anyways, he had counters that reduced, and he had counters that added, and then I had shear. That's what it was. Shears, and then he had stuff that added, and then I had breaks. So he was plussing stuff because of my status, and minusing stuff because of the status I put on him, and then adding stuff because of the abilities that he had. So some of the things in the game can get math and intensive, and
it's not too bad. Just make sure you go slow, do it in order.
Right.
That's pretty much the key.
Check your at least until you're 100% aware of your fuse abilities. Kind of glance at your cards once in a while, your character boards once in a while, and be like, am I remembering that I have this on?
Right.
Once. And reverse too. For some reason, if you break it and then you still think it's on, that would be really bad. For instance, this didn't happen, but if I would have broken Dalton's ability that let him move, the one that let him move an extra and an extra range.
Oh, right.
If I would have broken that and then forgotten that I broken it, and then you forgot that I broke it, and then I'm moving 2 or 3 and having a range of 2 on a basically melee player,
right.
That would be super bad if I didn't have a reduced hand because of it.
Yeah.
So anyways, I don't. If there was other stuff, I don't remember it. I know that we had talked about stuff while we were playing, and hopefully the gameplay lets you guys see enough to decide if you think it's a good. But I definitely give this a thumbs up. Jeb and I try to play so many things, but I feel like it would be one of the ones that we might revisit again if we had.
The Kickstarter.
Well, the Kickstarter we'll revisit again, and also every once in a while we do get a chance to we're sick of. We're sick of recording. We just want to play for fun, and we never know what we're gonna pick. But this one would be a fun one to revisit because there's just so much content. So anyways.
That's about it for me. I think I've exhausted all the stuff I can talk about.
Yeah, I think same here. So what is it? Like,
subscribe, comment if you have
comment, and tip.
Oh yeah,
The
and also if you
the
have any
coffee cup thing.
recommendations for games to play.
Recommendations. We'd be happy to if we own it, we'll try to record it. If we don't own it, if it's not too expensive, we might buy it.
Yep. And Stonebound Saga, the Kickstarter should be up when this video comes up. I don't know when the end date is.
It's not for a while. It should definitely be running.
Okay.
When this is...
Maybe I'll throw the Kickstarter link in the bottom too, just to make it easy for people to get over there. So.
Alright then, so thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Yep.
Boards and booze, booze and boards, with Mickey and Jeb.